Hey everybody, this is Matthew, CFCR Sled Island correspondent for 2012. I'm back with another set of interviews from this year's festival. In addition to the festival's music lineup, there is a robust and well-attended comedy portion. It's actually kind of hard to get into. They booked some big names in the past, including SNL's Fred Armisen, and this year the headliners include Todd Barry, Tim Heidecker of Tim and Eric's Awesome Show, and Natasha Leggero. I got a chance to talk to a couple of the acts from Thursday night, one being Calgary's own Chris Gordon. We spoke about his career troubles, notoriety in his hometown as the localist comedian in Calgary, and a bit about his past. Here we go.
Chris Gordon. I am still local comedian Chris Gordon, as I was reviewed yesterday.
Still local comedian. Is that something that's like haunting you, or?
Yeah, that's it's annoying because I think even when you get like local comedian, there's a weird what am I trying to say, connotation with it, right? Where it's like, oh, it's not good enough to leave. So I felt like when it was still local comedian, that was even more to the point. It's sort of like a subtle like diss.
Something like hometown boy or homegrown hero might be flattering.
Yeah, that's more flattering, but I feel like you don't get that until you leave. And it's not like I haven't left. I just I'm based out of here, and I done a lot of things in different places and pitched shows places and done gigs or festivals, but yeah, that's why I focused on it tonight, because it was in my brain, and I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about this. It has to happen.
So obviously you're from Calgary.
Yeah, from Calgary.
Is this your first time doing the festival?
No, I've been associated with the festival before. Last year, Ryan and I did a bit together when he was hosting, just for fun. It was a bit where he said that I was trying to get a job with racistjokes.com, the internet site, and so I came up and I was like, I don't want these jokes to be that was pretty much the response from the bit last year. No, that wasn't. But yeah, I was like, I need them to be funny, I need them to be racist, but I need that together. Like, they can't just be one or the other. So that was kind of the funny, weird thing we did last year. And then before that, there was a year they kind of took a break from the comedy thing, and I knew the guy kind of running it, and I wanted to keep comedy, and he kind of wanted to keep comedy. So we brought Rory Scovel in, who's a friend of mine, and kind of did our own show. We had a show here once a month called Talk Show Thursdays, and it was a variety show that was crazy. So we had a shortened version of that show in 3D, with everyone had 3D glasses, but nothing really looked 3D, which was kind of the fun of it. And then a comedy show after, headlined by Rory. So that was that's how I've been associated the last couple of years.
And you have been like a fairly international figure. The first time I actually heard about you was on Comedy Death Ray with Scott Aukerman.
Oh, okay, awesome. How did you? Okay,
I listened to the podcast, so I just going through the archives.
Oh, really? They mentioned the shows and stuff? Because I don't think I was on the. I don't know if I was.
I think Rory was on one.
Oh,
and he was
right.
Talking about.
And yeah, he's mentioned me in a few things. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I got to do one Death Ray, which is a crazy. Bit of a crazy adventure. I've been down there for 2 summers. I was taking groundlings courses and UCB courses because I always loved SNL, Saturday Night Live, and I was like, there's a way to. Found out about these. I'm like, oh, I should take these. So then tried to do stand-up and stuff around that. But the first year I went, I thought the Death Ray show, because it's got so many great people, I thought it was booked by agents. I'm like, well, I have no chance at this. So I didn't even try. Then I met through one of Rory's buddies. It's like, oh yeah, just send in my clips and Aukerman and stuff. And then so I did that the next year, and I didn't hear from him until we were end of the summer. We were 4 hours outside of LA. I got random Wi-Fi for free at this Best Western we stopped at to go to the washroom, and it said, do you want the opening 8-minute spot on Death Ray tonight? And I was like, oh my god, we packed up, we're ready to leave back to Canada, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, who's also a comedian, and I went to the car and I showed her, and her face was oh, I want to go home, we're all ready to go home, right? And I was like, I have to go back. And then she's I think she was upset at first, but then totally understood because she does comedy herself, right? So, it was an 8-hour trip, 4 hours, got that message, 4 hours back, and then I was just weird and wired from the show, and yeah, that was my first Death Ray. But I'm glad I did it because I've messaged him since, and he said, next time you're in town or whatever, I missed you this time, it was Christmas, it was crazy, but definitely message me. So I think taking those chances are important sometimes, making that sacrifice, even though it's just a spot on a show, you know. It's like, it felt like take the chance when it's there, the opportunity, you know.
So for people who haven't seen your show, you do this thing where you wear a T-shirt that has your phone number on it.
Yeah.
How did you get this segment going?
There used to be, I think it developed because there used to be a comedy challenge at the comedy club in town where you had to write like a best, it was like $50 goes to best joke about something each week. And I remember the one week, it was like most embarrassing story, and I was not prepared, or I didn't have a good one, and then I panicked sort of at the club. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just text my friends and family and like get them to tell them. But I was like, oh, better yet, I'll just make those up. Like, I'll be like, I didn't know what to say. So I text my friends and family, and they sent me these. And then I had just stupid jokes that were like that. But then from that, it developed, and I'm like, why don't I just, like, get the audience? I don't know. From that little bit, it developed into, I think I could get the audience to text message me. And then so it was like a different way of crowd work and interacting. And then I'd post it on my website just to get people to the website and feel like more a part of your show. You know what I mean? So,
do you wanna give your phone number?
Sure. Yeah, it's 403-708-6473. Yeah, and you can text that. Sometimes I'll answer calls, depending when it is, but sometimes I also like to take funny voicemails people leave, and I post those on my website too. I've gotten one from Value Village, which was very, like, state of my career, kind of depressing, but I had 2 calls from the same Value Village, and I can't remember what the first one said. I think it was one was an employee and one was someone just shopping. I think I answered the call to someone shopping, and I told them to buy my shirt there, and if they brought it, I'd get them into the show for free. The other one was a message from an employee, I think is on my site right now, and they're like, we have your shirt here? This is Value Village calling? I was like, oh my God, this is the worst, but also the best.
Okay, all right. This is a new bit, and I don't care right now. I make homemade root beer for kids because I've done it since I was a kid. I'm a businessman. I don't know how to make homemade root beer, I'll be honest with you, and can't eat cigarettes. Neither of those things I know how to make, but I sell a lot of them.
That was Calgary's own Chris Gordon. I also got the chance that night to talk to Graham Clark. He's a comedian from Vancouver, originally from Calgary, but he now works and lives in Vancouver. In addition to being a stand-up, he also does a very, very notable podcast called Stop Podcasting Yourself on Jesse Thorne's Maximum Fun Network. I talked to him a bit about that, about getting picked up by the network, and about what it's like to return home after so many years in Vancouver.
My name is Graham Clark. I'm a comedian playing at Sled Island in Calgary.
And is this your first time at the festival?
It is, yeah. This is my first time at the festival. And I purposefully came here because I was born and raised here in Calgary, so it was cool to, like, be involved in a festival that, is from my hometown. So, yeah.
You live and work in Vancouver now. How is it different performing at like clubs and venues there between here and Calgary?
I think probably people in Calgary give it up a bit more. I mean, they seem like they're a bit more ready to go off the gates, and Vancouver, they want you to prove it to them first.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more finicky. Yeah, but both are great places to do comedy. Just, I think one makes you work a little bit harder for it.
So this year at the festival, there are some big names: Natasha Leggero, Todd Barry. What's it like to share a stage with these guys?
I've been lucky enough to share a stage with both of them at different points in the past, and it's always a treat, right? It's good to see people who are like some of the best people in the world. Kind of reminds you, like, you got to stay in shape and keep writing and performing and stuff. So yeah, it's great. It's great to see different people that you wouldn't usually get to see, and it's awesome to see like people like Natasha and Todd who are like at the top of their game, and it's like it's kind of like an adrenaline boost.
So you a couple years ago joined Jesse Thorne's Maximum Fun Network, which is a cadre of podcasters that you do Stop Podcasting Yourself on. Mm-hmm. How has the experience changed from doing your podcast on your own to doing it within this sort of family?
It's changed in it, like, we're like a bit more, we're legit when we're with Maximum Fun. Like, we can say to a comedian or somebody we've never met before, like, hey, we're part of Maximum Fun, and they can look it up and go, oh, okay, like I know that thing or I've heard of that thing, because there's like a million podcasts out there. So asking somebody that you've never met to be a guest on your podcast is a little intimidating if you don't have, a name that they recognize. So that's helped us immensely in that category.
So how did you and your partner Dave Shimka get started doing the podcast?
It was all Dave's idea to start the podcast. He was like an avid podcast fan, and this was like early on in the days of podcasts. There weren't a lot of comedy podcasts at the time, and so he said like we should do a comedy one because there's only a few out there. I mean, there's thousands of them now, but it was his idea, and I said, yeah, it's great. I didn't really know what a podcast was, and we didn't know what we were doing. We just felt it out as we went along. Like, we really didn't know what a show was like, and we kind of invented segments as we went along. But the very genesis was kind of Dave asking me if I wanted to do it.
So what's your favorite part of Sled Island so far?
I think it was good last night because I got to have my family, a bunch of my family came out and saw the show, and it was a good show. And they got to see like a really good lineup of comics, and sometimes that doesn't happen when your friends and stuff come out to a show. You're like, we liked you, but they loved the whole show. So that to me is that's the top thing.
All right, well, thanks for talking.
Hey, no problems.
All right.
Awesome. That was like concise.
Painless.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like shitty house clothes. Like I was wearing pants that were mostly holes. Right, it was like just like a, belt and then holes and then cuffs, and an undershirt people call a wife beater. Which, how many horrible suggestions did they turn down before they went back to wife beater and said like that was the least offensive one that we came?
And that does it for the comedy portion of this year's Sled Island Festival. It's truly one of the best parts of the festival. It's an amazing lineup, and especially for a festival that's so grounded in the prairie provinces, it's something that you really shouldn't pass up when attending. Stay tuned for more coverage of CFCR's Sled Island 2012, including an upcoming interview with the lead guitarist of Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet. They played their second show in 15 years at Sled Island this year, and I got to talk to them a little bit about what it's like to be back in the saddle, and much, much more, of course. Thanks for listening.